Give me the Bible, star of gladness gleaming, to cheer the wanderer lone and tempest-tossed. No storms can hide that radiance peaceful beaming, since Jesus came to seek and save the lost. Give me the Bible, holy message shining, thy light shall guide me in the narrow way. Precept and promise, law and love combining, till night shall vanish in eternal day. Give me the Bible when my heart is broken, when sin and grief have filled my soul with fear. Give me the precious words by Jesus spoken. Hold up faith's lamp to show my Savior near. Give me the Bible, holy message shining, thy light shall guide me in the narrow way. Precept and promise, law and love combining, till night shall vanish in eternal day. Give me the Bible, all my steps enlighten, teach me the dangers of these realms below. That lamp of safety o'er the gloom shall brighten, that light alone the path of peace can show. Give me the Bible, holy message shining, thy light shall guide me in the narrow way. Precept and promise, law and love combining, till night shall vanish in eternal day. Give me the Bible, lamp of life immortal, hold up that splendor by the open grave. Show me the light from heaven's shining portals, show me the glory gilding Jordan's wave. Give me the Bible, holy message shining, thy light shall guide me in the narrow way. Precept and promise, law and love combining, till night shall vanish in eternal day. Break thou the bread of life, dear Lord, to me, as thou didst break the loaves beside the sea. Beyond the sacred page, I seek thee, Lord. My spirit pants for thee, O living word. Bless thou the truth, dear Lord, to me, as thou didst bless the bread by Galilee. Then shall all bondage cease, all fetters fall, and I shall find my peace, my all in all.
Hello, hello. How is everybody doing this fine Monday afternoon? Hope that you're having a good day, whether you're at work or you're at home or wherever you might be. Whether you're tuning in live or watching this later. It is good to be with you on this Monday afternoon, just a little after 4 o'clock local time here, coming to you from Mount Morris, Michigan. In my imaginary office. I say it's imaginary because it's not real. Here, let me show you. See, I got a green screen behind me. I can make it whatever I want. There's some embarrassing ones that are saved on here that I won't show you, but
don't do it.
CJ's here in the background. Let's see, I'll go back to this one. Reba's here. Hi, Reba. Good to have you with us. Philip, good work, brethren. Thank you. I appreciate that very much. We are in the study to show ourselves approved. We have been going through the book of Revelation slowly but surely. I was telling CJ after this, there's only, if I go with the pace that I'm planning, which that's a big if, but CJ, what? Heli? I don't think you meant to say that, did you? Heli, back to you, CJ. There we go. He corrected himself. CJ, it's hard to tell. Sometimes he types, but sometimes he dictates it. And he kind of has bad luck with both of them.
I typed that one.
I figured that because hello doesn't sound a lot like heli.
I will be right back.
Okay, brother. Hope that you're having a good Monday. Hope that you had a good holiday last week. Spent some time with family, remembered those who have made sacrifices for us, and remember the ultimate sacrifice that's been made for us, that, of course, being Jesus. So we have been in the book of Revelation, and we're going to pick up there. Let me get I'm not sure, I guess it's this one, which, nope, that's not it. There we go. Hi, Gloria. Good to have you with us this afternoon. So we have been going through the book of Revelation. Oh, I don't know that I finished what I was telling you. I told CJ if I keep with the pace that I'm planning, then after today, there'll be about 7 of these left. So there's 22 chapters in total, and we are going to go over chapter 13 today. Before we get into reading it, I want to just recap briefly some of what we have been going over in particular last week. So last week we looked at chapter 12. I hope that if you didn't tune in, you had a chance to look at that, or at least to read the chapter. Chapter 12 marks a pretty important transition in the book. It's the halfway point. So from 12 on, the tone of the book kind of shapes out differently. And this is predicated from this statement in chapter 10, rather, in verse 7, where it's mentioned that the mystery of God would be revealed after the blowing of the 7th trumpet. Well, that has now happened. And so the mystery of God, we see from this point on, is being fulfilled. And so what we're seeing is the fulfillment of that. And we talked a little bit about that last week, how the mystery of God, it can kind of perhaps be different things, but in general, I think it refers to the mystery being the plan of salvation that starts with Jesus going to the cross, and then it culminates with our response to that. Not that we're saved by works, but the things we do are in response, right? So, and you know that, I don't have to tell you that. So this is sort of the shift in the book that we've been seeing. And so starting in chapter 12, the tone has kind of changed a little bit. In chapter 12, we read about the woman, the dragon, and the child. There's this big red dragon, and the dragon's going to come up again in chapter 13. So it's important that we know who that is. That in chapter 12 is revealed to be the devil, Satan. It's revealed that this is the serpent from long ago who is now shown to us as this dragon, this big red dragon. And so the dragon first pursues the child. Then when he can't get to the child, he pursues the woman. Then when he can't get to the woman, he pursues the rest of the woman's offspring, which would consequently be us. Where, well, here, I have it here. He's pursuing those who keep the commandments of God and hold to the testimony of Jesus. I would hope we could say that of ourselves. That's our intention, right? So this is what we've been looking at. And so we ended sort of with this thought last week with this idea that what we're seeing happening here is a sort of spiritual warfare that's going on. And ultimately, it will be culminated in chapter 20. But for now, we're just going through this mostly at a chapter a week pace. And today we are going to be looking at Revelation chapter 13. So with that in mind, I'll go ahead and pull this up and we can read this together. Relatively short chapter, I think, compared to some of the other ones. So I can make this a little bigger too for y'all. Whoop, wrong one. Hang on. What do I want? This is what I want. There we go. Okay, I saw a beast rising out of the sea with 10 horns and 7 heads, with 10 diadems on its horns and blasphemous names on its heads. And the beast that I saw was like a leopard. Its feet were like a bear's, and its mouth was like a lion's mouth. And to it, the dragon, see, it comes up again. To it, the dragon gave his power and his throne and great authority. One of its heads seemed to have a mortal wound, but its mortal wound was healed, and the whole earth marveled as they followed the beast. And they worshipped the dragon, for he had given his authority to the beast, and they worshipped the beast, saying, "Who is like the beast, and who can fight against it?" And the beast was given a mouth uttering haughty and blasphemous words, and it was allowed to exercise authority for 42 months. It opened its mouth to utter blasphemies against God, blaspheming his name and his dwelling, that is, those who dwell in heaven. And it was allowed to make war on the saints and to conquer them. And authority was given it over every tribe and people and language and nation. And all who dwell on earth will worship it, everyone whose name has not been written before the foundation of the world in the book of life of the Lamb who was slain. If anyone has an ear, let him hear. If anyone is to be taken captive, to captivity he goes. If anyone is to be slain with the sword must he be slain. Here is a call for the endurance and faith of the saints. Then I saw another beast rising out of the earth. It had 2 horns like a lamb, and it spoke like a dragon. It exercises all the authority of the first beast in its presence, and makes the earth and its inhabitants worship the first beast, whose mortal wound was healed. It performs great signs, even making fire come down from heaven to earth in front of people. And by the signs that it is allowed to work in the presence of the beast, it deceives those who dwell on earth, telling them to make an image for the beast that was wounded by the sword and yet lived. And it was allowed to give breath to the image of the beast, so that the image of the beast might even speak and might cause those who would not worship the image of the beast to be slain. Also, it causes all, both small and great, both rich and poor, both free and slave, to be marked on the right hand or the forehead, so that no one can buy or sell unless he has the mark, that is, the name of the beast or the number of its name. This calls for wisdom. Let the one who has understanding calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. Okay, thank you for that, CJ. So, kind of interesting chapter, huh? A lot of things that that we seem to talk a lot about. You have the mark of the beast in this chapter. The beast itself is here in this chapter. So, interesting things that we're going to be looking at. What we see happening, let me get that going. What we see happening here is a cheap knockoff. You ever buy something and there's maybe a more expensive version of it, but you get kind of just the regular, I don't know, off-brand version of it? You see these if you have an iPhone, like I have. I have an Apple phone here, where they're really persnickety with the kind of chargers that you buy, where if it's not like a approved charger, it doesn't work as well. This is one that you'd buy for like $1 or something at a gas station, and they usually don't work very well. Or you might find this at like the Dollar Tree or something. I think that's the Dollar Tree brand. And so it's not the real thing. It's just a cheap knockoff version of it, and it doesn't work as well. That's partially Apple's fault, but point withstanding. Or you see, this is Dave soap, not Dove soap, but Dave soap. Let me enlarge it so that you can see that. Dave soap. Pretty funny, huh? So obviously not real. The real brand is Dove, but Dave might be good. I don't know. Then you have, instead of the Avengers, you have the Revengers. And then if you look at this, instead of, this is supposed to be the Incredible Hulk, but it says the Incredible Fella. That's really, really funny to me. And you look at his picture, and it's just incredible. The Incredible Fella. So you see these knockoffs and how they work. And what I think is perhaps the most egregious out of all of them is these knockoff pops or soda, depending on where you're from. The Dr. Thunder, I affectionately refer to that as wolf in sheep's clothing, because I'm a big Dr. Pepper guy. So you have Mountain Lightning and you have Dr. Thunder, and and each store has their own. These are just the Walmart brands, the Great Value. If you shop at Myers here in Michigan, they have their own. Kroger, I think, has their own. You go anywhere and they pretty well have their own for the most part. And so you have these knockoffs, and what the knockoffs are they're cheap imitations trying to replicate something that has success. So you think about the first example with the phone charger. Apple sells those phone chargers for, I think they're like $30 a piece for to get a replacement charger for your phone.
At least the computer was like $60.
What was that, CJ?
Their computer charger was like $60.
Oh, he's talking about Apple. Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, that's Apple. They make money. They are capitalists to a T. So they make a bunch of money off of that. Well, why pay $30 or $60 for a charger when you can pay $2 for one? Or why buy Dr. Pepper? Why buy a 12-pack of that for $4? It's actually a lot more than that now, but that's what it used to be, when you could get Dr. Thunder for like $2.50 or something. So it's cheap imitations of what I would say is the real deal. For Dr. Pepper, that certainly is the case. So what we're seeing is a cheap knockoff here. And what I mean by that is what seems to be happening here is the dragon, who is introduced in chapter 12, but we also see in this chapter, Then you have the sea beast. There's the one that comes out of the sea. And then you have the land beast. They are sort of making a knockoff Trinity. And this is one that deceives a lot of people. And this, you'll see this when you look in detail at some of the things that are recorded in this chapter, in particular about the sea beast, who the sea beast is imitating. Rebus, his original Dr. Pepper was originated in Waco, Texas. I've had some of the Texas Dr. Pepper, and it's a lot better than what you get other places because they use real sugar or something like that. My old minister, when I was at another congregation, he had a daughter that lived in Texas, and whenever he'd go down there, he'd bring some of the real stuff up and he'd share it, and it was great. So this is a knockoff sort of Trinity where, and you'll see it when we look in detail at some of the things. Some describe this chapter as a parody, and it makes sense when you think about what a parody is. It's kind of a spin on something, but parodies are usually meant to be funny. I don't know if you've ever heard of the musician Weird Al Yankovic. He makes parodies of songs where it'll sound just like the other song, but the lyrics are different, and they're very funny. It's for comedic effect, and parodies are often done. It's a form of comedy. Parody is, but there's nothing funny about this because people's souls are, of course, at stake with this. And so as we look in detail at some of these things, in particular, I think with the sea beast, but you see it a little bit with the land beast also, and with the dragon, you'll see that these are cheap imitations as we go through some of this. So as we look here in this chapter, John first sees this beast rising out of the sea. So we've already met the dragon. That was in chapter 12. Now there's a beast that's rising out of the sea. And there's a lot of parallel between this beast and the four beasts that we read about in Daniel chapter 7. Daniel, in that chapter, he sees, hi, Teresa. We're just barely getting started. So we see an allusion here to Daniel chapter 7 and verse 3, where if I pull that up, and let's look here in Daniel 7. Daniel 7 is a very important chapter, one of the more important chapters, I'd say, in the Old Testament. So it's the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon. Daniel has this dream, and he declares, I saw in... Oh, Stephanie's here too. Hey, Stephanie. Good to have you with us. We're going through the book of Revelation, but I'm taking a detour in Daniel 7. So Daniel declared, verse 2, I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the four winds of heaven were stirring up the great sea. In verse 3, 4 great beasts came up out of the sea, different from one another. So we see that here, where there's this allusion first with the beast coming out of the sea. The four beasts also came out of the sea in Daniel 7. And this is a pretty common thing in Jewish literature, especially in apocalyptic literature, which Daniel 7 is apocalyptic. Revelation also is apocalyptic. So you see the tie-ins there. And the sea is often regarded as the origin of evil. So that's just sort of how they thought of things. One could ask, could this be the same beast that we read of in Revelation 11 and verse 7, who rose out of the bottomless pit? Some versions call that the abyss. So if you look there, I'm not going to get out of Daniel 3 because I'm going to go back there. So if you look at Revelation 11, and what did I say, 7? They finished their testimony. This is the two witnesses. The beast that rises from the bottomless pit will make war on them and conquer them and kill them. And he's mentioned, there's a footnote here of when or I thought there was. Maybe it's here. Chapter 13, and well, he's mentioned before that. I don't remember when exactly, but let me get back to chapter 13. So could this be that beast? I don't know, but people like to speculate that. So I just mentioned in Daniel 7, there's the illusion that he comes out of the sea. Well, there's even more illusions that tie in with Daniel 7. You might have noticed I have some things highlighted in that passage when I had my Bible software up on there. So he's mentioned in Revelation 13 as having 10 horns and 7 heads. Well, first of all, the dragon is also described in that way, having 10 horns and 7 heads. So this beast is sort of the same as the dragon, sort of the same substance, or you could say the same nature. But this is also a combination of the beasts back in Daniel 7. So if we get back to that, this is in Daniel 7. So there's 4 great beasts that come. The first had eagle wings and so on. Another beast, it's raised up and had 3 ribs in its mouth. There's a third one. This beast has 4 heads, not like a forehead, but 4 heads, and it has dominion. Then there's the fourth beast, and this one also has horns. So if we tie back in here, we see that there's some parallels here. Not exact parallels, but pretty close. We see that the third beast in Daniel 7 had 4 heads, and then the fourth beast had 10 horns. So just an interesting tidbit here. There's also the idea of the animals that are mentioned. If you look in Revelation 13, I apologize if this is a little much going back and forth, but we see that the beast was like a leopard, its feet were like a bear's, and its mouth was like a lion's mouth. So you have 3 animals mentioned. This is in Revelation 13, a leopard, a bear, and a lion. If you look in Daniel 7, oh, I didn't mean to do that. Hang on. I got out of the full screen thing. Oh, nope. Bear with me a moment. There we go. If you look here, I have them highlighted. The first was like a lion, then another beast, a second one like a bear, and then another like a leopard. So there's parallels here between beareth witheth. Thank you, CJ. So you see the parallels here between the beast in Revelation 13 and the beasts that are mentioned in Daniel chapter 7. There's some interesting connections that you could make. So we see this is the sea beast, the one that comes out of the sea. It receives its power from the dragon. And so what you could almost see happening is the dragon is recruiting help in its pursuit of persecuting the church. It brings in this beast to help it. And so the dragon gives the beast this power, and he receives from the dragon its power and his throne and great authority. So when you look here at this dragon has the ability to impart this power and this throne and this authority. So kind of an interesting thing going on here when you start trying to put pieces together about possibly giving a specific identity to these. Some things are maybe coming to mind. What we see here is the dragon and his beast are phonies. They're knockoffs of God. They're trying to imitate the Trinity that exists, the Godhead, the Father and the Son and the Spirit. This is an imitation of that. Because what does Jesus say? He says that the Father has given him authority, right? So you can kind of see some of the pieces of the puzzle perhaps coming together in relation to this. So the imitation continues, where we see now the beast has on one of his heads a mortal wound that has been healed. You think about a mortal wound, that's a wound that kills you, right? A mortal wound is a wound that, it makes you mortal. So A mortal wound is one that kills. So seemingly this beast has been killed, but he's been healed. So there's an allusion here to a resurrection of some kind that probably makes you think about a certain resurrection, right? The language here is also the same as what's been used before, thinking about in Revelation chapter 5, when John sees a lamb that was standing as though it had been slain. That's Revelation 5 and verse 6. So you see the imitation that's going on. I think it's pretty evident that this beast is trying to imitate Jesus, getting authority, having a throne, and then having this mortal wound as if he's been raised from the dead. Well, what happens is people fall for this, and the earth marvels at this supposed resurrection from this beast. All the while, there's an actual resurrection that they seem to be ignoring. So you have this happening here with the dragon and with this beast. And how does the earth react to it? They worship the dragon. That's how they react to this. So the dragon is the source of the power of the beast. And so the dragon is the one who, quote unquote, is worthy of worship in the eyes of these people. So it's the dragon who they worship. Well, you think about the parallel to us. The Father has given this authority to Jesus. Jesus is our Lord. We worship the Father, right? I mean, we worship Jesus also, but it's just an interesting thing that's going on here. And so they also worship the beast, and they ask the question, who is like the beast and who can fight against it? So what they are saying of the beast should be said of Jesus, who is like the Lord and who can fight against him. The answer to that, of course, is nobody. But they ask that instead about this beast who's just an imitator. It's the Dr. Thunder, so to speak. So then as we continue through this chapter, what happens next is the war or the persecution of the church. So if you look at the passage, they worship the dragon, verse 4. They ask who is like the beast and who can fight against it. And then let me go up just a little bit. In verse 5, the beast is given a mouth uttering haughty and blasphemous words, and it's allowed to exercise authority for 42 months. So there's this 42-month period where it has authority. And what we see is it is uttering blasphemies against God, and it's blaspheming his name and his dwelling, and the dwelling is those who dwell in heaven. And then in verse 7, it's allowed to make war against the saints and to conquer them. Hey, Sam. It's 3 a.m. This is why I never hear you until now. Well, I thank you for being here. I understand if you want to go to bed. 3 a.m., I'm usually sleeping. So we come back to the PowerPoint here, and the persecution of the church is what's happening next. We notice that the beast is given this authority for 42 months. And 42 months is symbolic of a time period of persecution. And we've seen this come up a lot since chapter 11. It's come up in chapter 11, it's come up in chapter 12, and it's come up again. It's referred to as different things. It's been referred to in a 3.5-year period, or 1,290 days, or times and half a time is another way that it's referred to as. These are all the same thing. 42 months is 3.5 years. If you have each month being 30 days, then 1,290 days is also 3.5 years. The time is 1 year, the times is 2, and then the half is obviously half. So this is symbolic in apocalyptic literature in particular about a time of persecution. And what we see this beast doing is he is blaspheming God, both his name and his dwelling place, which if you notice the dwelling place that's mentioned here is us. We are the dwelling place. And you could look at places like 1 Corinthians 3 and verse 16 talks about how we are the temple of God. That's speaking about us as individuals, I think. The Holy Spirit dwells within us. We are the temple of that. He says the same thing in 1 Corinthians 6 and verse 19. And then in Ephesians 2 and 21, in that setting, he's talking about the congregation of the church is becoming a temple for God. So the church is, whether that's at an individual level, if God's Spirit is in us, or as a collective level, we are God's dwelling place. And you can see this when in verse 6, it is those who dwell in heaven. So his dwelling is people. It's those. That's a personal pronoun. So it's the dwelling place is referred to as a person here. In this case, it's a collection of people. Those who dwell in heaven. That's referring to us. Our home is in heaven, right? Our citizenship is in heaven, like Paul talks about. So he's blaspheming not just God, but also his dwelling, which is his people. And then we see that the beast is allowed to make war on the saints and to conquer them. Now, this is an interesting thing because some say, well, if he's allowed to conquer them, then that makes God bad for allowing that to happen. He's allowed to conquer them, but it doesn't say that he will conquer them. It's not a forced outcome. He doesn't have to conquer us. We can be victorious, right? It's not like we're fighting a losing battle here. In fact, it's the opposite. We're fighting a winning battle. We're on the winning side of things. But sadly, a lot of people give up, and in doing so, they allow the beast to win. So it might seem as if the beast is conquering, and this is kind of part of the larger thread going through the book of Revelation. For the saints living through Roman persecution, it seemed like they were fighting a losing battle because so many of their brethren were getting killed or being persecuted and so on. But in reality, we conquer the same way that the Lamb conquered, the same way our Lord conquered, through obedience and through sacrifice. That's how he was worthy to open the scroll and to break the seals. If you remember back in chapter 5, he's overcome through his victory. CJ says, those who dwell in heaven, in a sense, we are seated in heavenly places right now. Yeah, you could make that case pretty easily. Good point. So it's through obedience and sacrifice that we conquer. It's not like we take swords and shields and stuff. We do, but it's the spiritual kind, like what Paul talks about in Ephesians 6. The sword of the Spirit, the shield of faith, and so on and so forth. It's not a physical battle. This is a spiritual one, right? That's being waged against us right now. So we conquer, we overcome through obedience and through sacrifice. And what we see in this is the whole earth. And by earth, it's not referring to the population of the earth. It's referring to those who are in opposition to God. Those will worship the beast. Are you going to make CDs of the study of Revelation? I hadn't thought about it, but I could. All of these, I think, are available on the CEM page. So if a CD would make it easier, I would consider that. So then we have, in the middle of this, we have a call to be faithful. Here's a call for the endurance and faith of the saints. So this is our call. It's to endure and to be faithful. And really, those two are the same thing. It's not like enduring and being faithful are two different things. We endure by being faithful is sort of the idea in that. So if something happens to us and we go into captivity, so be it. We're already strangers in a foreign land. Let's see. I do not know how Nicholas would have to do that. There's a way to do it. It would be a little work, but I could do it. Just make audio files of these lessons and burn them to a CD, unless I just re-recorded them all. So we're already strangers in a foreign land. Our home is in heaven, right? That's where our citizenship lies. So we're already, in a sense, captives. If we're slain, say, with the sword, then so be it. We will have been found faithful unto death, and we'll get our reward, right? That crown of life, like what Jesus says in Revelation 2 and verse 10. For faithful unto death, he will give us the crown of life. What a blessing that is to have that hope. And then if we don't give in, or we're not to renounce our faith, that is some of the persecution that the Christians were dealing with back under the Roman regime, was denounce Christ or I'll cut your head off. Well, that's pretty severe, right? Either die or renounce Jesus. Well, we are to not give in and denounce our faith, but instead we're to endure the persecution that comes from the beast. And in America, at least, you're kind of slowly seeing persecution rise up a little bit. It's not bad. It's nothing like what we see with some of our brothers that live in other countries, but you see more ridicule, more I want to be careful, more bad attitudes towards Christians, and especially toward holiness and righteousness and things of that nature. You see it with the month that is going on right now, how they celebrate this month as something to be prideful in, and these sinful sort of behaviors. And I've seen posts where people say, well, happy Pride Month to my Christian friends who are homophobics and this, that, and the other thing. And so you see the ridicule really ramping up a little bit in America. And it seems like we're moving in the direction where the longer time goes on and the more secular the world becomes, the harder it is for us to live here, right? And Jesus told us, if you stand up for righteousness, you're gonna face persecution. Paul makes that point in 1 Timothy. So it's pretty easy now, but CD has an advantage, so we can hear you again. Well, if people are interested in that, I'm not opposed to doing that. Once all of this is done, I could get a collection of them going. I appreciate the encouragement. So we move on, and John sees another beast. The first beast came out of the sea. This one now is coming out of the earth. And so these are referred to as the sea beast and the land beast, or the earth beast. This beast is interesting because it looks like a lamb. It has two horns like a lamb does, and John even mentions that here. But its speech gives it away. It may look like a lamb, but it speaks like a dragon. So when you think about the imagery of a wolf in sheep's clothing, if you think about that in a literal sense, on the outside it looks like a sheep, but on the inside it's a wolf, and it's going to talk like a wolf, right? It's like some of these people that are men and they try to dress as women, and then they talk and they have this deep voice, and it's like, oh, well, okay. Well, similar thing here. It looks like a lamb, but it speaks like a dragon. And it's interesting when you look at this beast and the relationship that it has with the other beast. So this beast is rising out of the earth. It has two horns like a lamb, and it spoke like a dragon. It exercises all the authority of the first beast in its presence, and it makes the earth and its inhabitants worship the first beast, whose mortal wound was healed. And it performs these signs, making... Whoa, what happened? That was weird. Performs great signs, making fire come down from heaven. And by the signs that it's allowed to work in the presence of the beast, it deceives those who dwell on earth, telling them to make an image for the beast. So what seems to be happening here is that this beast is almost like a hype man, for the sea beast, where he's making the earth worship it, and he's even performing these great signs so that people will believe what they are saying. This to me sounds a lot like the Spirit. You think about in the book of Acts, the apostles, and you think about Jesus and some of the things that he did, but the Acts, or in the book of Acts, the apostles through the Spirit were able to do some of these miraculous signs, and the signs were to confirm their testimony. Well, now you have this beast who's doing these signs, sending fire from heaven and so on and so forth, and leading people to believe in this beast. But again, we shouldn't be fooled by this, because this cheap imitation, and that's really what this is, it's here to deceive those who dwell on the earth. And sadly, so many people fall trapped to it. What we see as we go through this is that the beast here has a mark. This is, one of the more famous tidbits from the book of Revelation is the mark of the beast. You have even secular people who know about this. You bring up the number, and it kind of makes them shudder a little bit, because they're like, "Oh, the mark of the beast." This beast has a mark, and people who worship the beast, excuse me, they get either the mark on their right hand or on their forehead. Well, again, this is a cheap imitation of the seal of God that was on the forehead of the saints. We saw this in chapter 7. If you look there in Revelation 7, let me pull this up. So John sees 4 angels. They're on the 4 corners of the earth. He sees another angel, and this angel from the rising of the sun with the seal of the living God, and he called with a loud voice the 4 angels who had been given power to harm the earth, saying, "Do not harm the earth or the sea or the trees until we have sealed the servants of our God on their foreheads." So this seal is going to be on their foreheads. So we see an imitation here going on, where those who have the seal of God, they have it on their foreheads. Those who have the mark of the beast, it's on their foreheads or on their right hand. And what ends up happening here is you can't buy or sell without the mark of the beast. There was economic pressure to cave and to worship the beast. And this was something that our brothers back during the Roman persecution had to deal with. They had the threat to either abandon Christianity and to be able to participate in the economy, or get blacklisted from the economy and not be able to participate. That's a real thing that happened, and that's a real thing that still sometimes happens today, where kind of a big thing in the political realm right now are these boycotts that are happening. You have the conservatives are boycotting some things, the progressives, you could call them, are boycotting other things, and it's a big thing. And what it boils down to is, are you going to bend the knee, or are you going to let us boycott you? That kind of thing. And it's just interesting. You see it from both sides now. It's been a one-sided thing for a long time, but so there's this pressure. You either give up God and you're able to thrive in the economic world, or you're going to get blacklisted and you're going to lose all your money and you're going to starve and you're going to end up perishing. That was a real thing that our brothers back during the Roman persecution had to endure. And you could see it slowly, lightly taking shape, perhaps, in America today. Sam says some places have set attitude, for example, in Roman Catholic and tradition, Bible, it's hard to come by, and bringing in lack of discipline. The Catholics do a lot of wrong things. Let's see, get back to this. So what we've already referred to, the number of the beast is 666. Some say it's 666, but the number is 666. You could read it as 666, but it's 666. I don't know if you've experienced this, but sometimes I'll go through the drive-thru at these fast food places, and my total will come to $6.66. And you pull up to the window to pay, and they're like, "Are you sure you want to, pay that?" It's like, well, yeah, that's not the number. 666 is the number, which I guess you're paying 666 cents. But anyway, we shouldn't fear this number. There's a lot of speculation about this number. People have made it into a lot of stuff that it's not. For example, you may have seen stuff like this where on Monster cans, you see the sort of lettering that makes up the M. It looks a lot like a Hebrew number or Hebrew letter that has a numeric value, and 3 of those is 666. But again, that's not the number. It's 666. So this is funny, I think, but I don't think there's any value to it. Another one that you see sometimes is Google Chrome. I don't know if this will work, but I'm going to try it. Where what you have here with this is you have what looks like a 6 here. Is that going to come up? It is, good. And then you look like there's a 6 here, and then it looks like there's a 6 here. And these 3 make up this right here, and then that would add up to 666. But again, that's not the real number. It's just funny stuff to mention. One that I thought was really funny, Teresa says, I've watched Left Behind before I knew the truth. Yeah, a lot of movies get it wrong like that. Another one that I thought was kind of funny. I don't know your opinion on the politician that I have on the screen here, but regardless of that, people have said that the hand gesture that he's making here, and he's not the only one that makes it. I know countless people that make it, that this looks like a 6 and a 6 and a 6. And I've heard that from other people about different things, but it's just a really humorous thing. CJ's doing it on the screen right now. I can see him. You can't, but he did one of these numbers here. I played basketball when I was in high school, and this was always what you do when you'd make a 3-pointer. You could put the 3 goggles on, or different stuff like that. But anyway, let me get back to my notes here. So there's a lot that's made about the beast. Let's see what Teresa said. That's CJ for you. You give him an inch and he takes a mile. He's nodding his head. Yep. Let's see what Sam says here. There's some we cannot buy examples as things represent wrong for living. You're absolutely right. Target is a good example of that. They sell the Pride stuff for toddlers, and obviously you shouldn't buy that stuff. I haven't shopped at Target in years, but that's just because Target isn't my kind of store. But things like there's the boycott of the alcohol company, Bud Light, and all that. We've been talking here at our congregation about that. Not like just in fellowship. We've talked about that. Me and a few other people, and I've said, well, this doesn't affect me at all because I don't buy beer. So until they boycott something that affects me, I don't pay a whole lot of attention to it. But so again, the number of the beast is 666. And what we see in this is that this is a number that needs wisdom to be able to decipher it. You need wisdom, understanding, and calculating. It's interesting when you think about calculating something, it's usually they give you an equation like, I don't know, y equals mc squared or something. That's an equation that you calculate, right? But we see here that this is a number that we need to calculate. And what we see in this also is that this is the number of a man. So there's a lot that's been made about this. If you take the passage here for what it's worth, then we see that this number represents a man. And that raises the question, well, how in the world can we calculate it, and who is this man? So what things can we do to try to decipher that? Well, this is kind of difficult for us because those of us who are in English-speaking countries, there's really nothing we could do with this. But in some, and this is mostly true in ancient languages, like in Hebrew and in Greek, they both do this. For example, biblical Hebrew, biblical Greek, Koine Greek, they have this concept known as gematria or gematria, depending on how you pronounce it. I've heard it both ways. This is the practice of, in your alphabet, you have your letters. In English, we have A, B, C, D. In Greek, there's alpha, beta, gamma, delta, so on. In Hebrew, there's aleph, vet, so on and so forth. Each letter of the alphabet has a numeric value. And so how this would work if we did this in English, just to try to understand the concept, A would be number 1, B would be number 2, C would be number 3, so on and so forth until you get to Z, which would be number 26. So if and part of this is when you have letters that have a numeric value, when you write out a word, you can add up those letters to where the word has a value. So if you did this with my name is Nick. Well, that's a nickname, but pun intended, by the way. An N would be 14, an I would be 9, a C would be 3. CJ shaking his head at the pun I just made. A K would be 11. So the numeric value of my name would be 37. If I did my full name, which is Nicholas, I don't know what it would be, but it'd be a little bigger. So this is something that they did with letters and with words and so on and so forth, with names also. And so it's interesting. The word beast in Hebrew, it has a numeric value. When you take the letters and you add it up, it has a numeric value of 666. Interesting thing. Actually, I had that on one of these slides here. Right here, you can see it, the Hebrew numerals here. Let me put that full screen. You see it here. I don't know if you can see my mouse, but these all have numbers. And in Hebrew, it's a little different. They go to 9, and then they go in increments of 10. But as they do it, go ahead, CJ.
I was gonna say, maybe put your laser pointer up there.
Oh, well, I'm already past it. So if I get back here, beast in Hebrew adds up to 666. That's oddly coincidental, isn't it? I don't know if there's anything to that, but it's really odd. We also see that Nero, the emperor who's very well known for persecuting Christians, his full name, Neron Caesar, also adds up to 666. So if you're thinking about this being a man, Nero seems to be the most logical candidate for that, because his name literally in, I think it's in Hebrew, adds up to 666. It's Hebrew or Greek. I don't remember which one it is. So why Nero? Well, Nero is the one who's probably most well known for persecuting Christians. He was the Roman emperor who did a lot of it. Other emperors did it also. Domitian, who was the emperor when Revelation was written, he did a lot of it also. But Rebus is on the monster drink, it says unleash the beast. Yeah, that's oddly coincidental, isn't it? I don't know if that's on purpose on their part or what have you, and it's named Monster, so that's another layer to it. there was a concept that they had when this book was written known as Nero Redivivus. I think that's how you say that. CJ had some tricky names in his Bible reading today, and this is another tricky one. This was you could kind of call it a conspiracy theory, where this myth taught that either one, Nero faked his death and was going to come back with vengeance on Rome, or two, Nero had died and he was going to be raised from the dead. There was a lot of weird stuff that people thought about Nero back then. They thought that he thought of himself as a godly kind of person, godly in the sense that he thought he was a god, right? Not in the sense that we would say that we're godly people, but he thought that he was a god. And the imperial cult was a really sinister thing that was going on, where the Roman emperors made you worship them. And Domitian had that also. He thought of himself as a god. And so this conspiracy theory, you could call it, taught that either Nero faked his own death and he was going to come back and overthrow the Roman government, or that he died and he was going to raise from the dead anyway. And so to people living under the Roman regime, this would be kind of a terrifying thing to read, because this beast is one who has a mortal wound that's been healed. And that could be something that's playing into this. And that would have stricken a lot of fear into any Romans who would have been reading this. But anyway, I don't know if there's any of this at play or not, but that's something that was a possibility back then. What we see here is that Nero's full name, Neron Caesar, adds up to 666. Now, there's this might be over your heads. I probably shouldn't have included this, but I included it anyway. In Greek, there's an odd thing that happens where at the end of a word, we kind of have this in English. You know how in English, if you have a word that starts with a vowel, you don't say, give me a apple pie. You say, give me an apple pie. You throw an N at the end if something ends with a vowel and then the next word begins with it. In Greek, they have the same thing, and their N, it's a nu is the letter. It could be added or taken depending on if the word starts with a vowel. And if you take the nu off of Neron Caesar's name, then and then you transliterate that into Hebrew, Nero Caesar adds up to 616, which I don't know if any versions include this, but in the ESV, there's a footnote. If you look, let's look back at chapter 13. That's the next chapter. And the number is 666. Some manuscripts say 616. I don't know if any versions would have that. I'm going to check that just to be sure. That is, what verse is that? Verse 18. Let's see if any. Oh, no, 1318. My bad. We're not that far ahead, are we? 666. New American Standard writes it out. Let's see. 666. All of them seem to have it. So some manuscripts have that, but others don't. So kind of an interesting tidbit there. So either way, it would add up to Nero, one way or the other, if it's 666 or 616. But really, and I know we're told to calculate this and try to figure this out, but regardless of who the number represents, the number is 666. And there's some interesting things when you think about symbolically what that means. Jesus's name in Hebrew is 888. So you see some symbolism going on here. When you have these increments of 7, either 7 or 77 or 777, 7 is the number for perfection as the Jews think of it, right? What we see in this is that Jesus exceeds perfection, whereas the beast falls short of perfection. And by fall short, we mean he's not remotely close to that. He's not perfect. Jesus, if it's possible, is more than perfect. And I don't know if there's a way for us to fully understand that, but that is our lesson for this afternoon. I appreciate you being here. I appreciate you going a little bit past the hour. Lord willing, we will try to get back, if not next week, then some other time. I don't know what my schedule holds, but Lord willing, we'll be back at this again on another Monday coming soon. If not next week, then soon after. And we will continue our study to show ourselves approved through the book of Revelation. I appreciate you being here. I appreciate the comments. And I thank you for your attention. And Lord willing, we'll be back soon.